Good morning, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington TTOUCH practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan, he's a corgi. So today, there's been some questions on my sister's page, Friends Who Like Judy Morgan, about harnesses and how to find a harness that's going to fit your dog and that's going to work. Now, I tried to answer a lot of the questions directly there, but I decided to do another Facebook Live, never too many, on the TTOUCH harness and why I think it's the best harness for most dogs, like 99%. And, you know, I think the most important thing for people to understand when they're getting a harness is to educate themselves about how the harness fits their dog and how to know if the harness fits your dog. It's just like people with saddles in their horses. You know, you get 6 people telling you it fits and you get one person like me who comes and says, no, it doesn't fit. And there's a reason why that is. People don't know how to check properly. And TTOUCH people are trained, and we have seen so much from our bodywork work of things that went wrong with saddles, with harnesses, with inappropriate equipment, you know, with bad shoeing, bad trimming, you know, everything that can create an imbalance in an animal's body. Those are the people that come to us because imbalances in the body can create also behavior problems as well. And so people come to TTOUCH either for body work or a behavior problem. It could be either. So today we're going to talk about the TTOUCH harness. So I'll show you on the stuffed dog. It's a basic H harness. It comes across the top. It has a part that goes between the legs and then a bit around the neck and around the middle. And significantly, it comes with a leash that attaches at the top and at the front. This is ideal if your dog is pulling. You can give him really clear signals with each of these pieces to balance his body and stop. Okay, dogs that have been using leashes, like my mom had one of these, the Easy Walk that just attaches in the front. That was a terrible harness because it only attached in the front, and the way they work is by pulling the dog off balance. So he's not pulling forward, you're knocking him down. So for my mom's Schnauzer, this created tremendous numbers of chiropractic issues, pain in her shoulders, all kinds of stuff my mom was not aware of because when she put the harness on the dog, she was still trying to run away from the pain of this. And so she kept pulling, trying to get away and getting knocked off balance over and over. We put the dog, a big Schnauzer with my tiny 4'10" mom, in the raspberry, just like Jack's wearing, TTOUCH harness. I showed her how, she's a rider, so it didn't take her too long, to use the 2 leashes, one in each hand, to get the dog more balanced, and the dog walked perfectly. So much so that the next day, when she was walking the dog without me to help her, the neighbor thought she had gotten a new dog. The dog was acting so differently. So TTOUCH has been around a long time. We have worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of animals, and we have learned a lot from these experiences and a lot with harnesses. So you've got these 2 points of attachment here so you can keep the dog in balance. One of the most important things about your harnesses and your dogs is that a dog that's in physical balance is a dog that's in emotional balance. And think about that yourself. If you're trying to balance in the kitchen on one leg for a really long time, more than you can do, what happens? You start to hold your breath, you start to panic, you start to go, oh, you start to wave your arms. You are not emotionally balanced any longer. The same thing happens to a dog, like my mom's poor Schnauzer being pulled off balance over and over. Same thing happens with gentle leaders. You're pulling their head out of alignment. All of this situation with the front end pulling can create tremendous numbers of issues in the cervical vertebrae and in the cranial nerves in the head, which of course go to our 5 senses. So then your dog has trouble seeing, smelling, tasting, and hearing because the head collar has been pulled incorrectly as well. So for dogs that really pull, one session with this type of harness can make a huge change. And I worked with a golden retriever puppy. She was like a year old, and she was going in her crate butt out so that they could not get her to go for walks because her prior harness was hurting her so much, and she didn't have another way to explain to them that she did not want to go for a walk. They were skeptical. I met them in a parking lot in a car. They were skeptical that I could even get the harness on that dog. But one of the great things about these harnesses is, as you can see, there's a snap to undo it here, and you can stretch it out underneath. you can lengthen it on both sides, neck and back piece and the bottom piece. They're super adjustable. So I just undid everything, went in, petted the dog, dropped the harness over her back, did up one piece, did up the other piece, and gave her some treats, and the person was amazed because she just didn't think she could get a harness on the dog. I took the dog around the parking lot 2 or 3 times, just getting her familiar to being in balance. She's wagging, she's happy. I showed the lady how to walk her with 2 hands. Great, okay, showed the lady how to walk her with 1 hand, because at the end of this leash is a handle that you can hold the dog with. Instead of using 2 hands, and the dog has walked perfectly ever since. She is a huge advocate of this harness. She has told dozens of people in my area that she's met on dog walking trails about this harness, because it literally saved her dog's life of being able to walk comfortably. I mean, these harnesses are a miracle. And you know, a lot of people don't like the way they look because they are just this thin-ish. This is a small, so the larges are much wider. This piece of nylon, and they think that this harness or something like this is a no brand, because I don't want to diss other brands, but I want to show you why they don't work. So this no brand has the mesh on the top, and when you pull on it, if you put it on you and pull on it, this piece of tape that goes around the front, which feels squishy, it becomes like a tight noose around your dog's neck, even though you think because it's mesh, it's pulling on the whole dog. It is not. It can really hurt dogs. I've seen a lot of dogs hurt by this. And people that use this kind of harness with a pulling dog thinking they're not hurting them, the other thing they've complained about is that this stretches out really fast. And then the dog can wiggle out of it, and you know, they have to buy a new one, and these are not that cheap. Some of the brands that they make that are mesh like this can be quite expensive. So that becomes a problem. And then you think that you're pulling on the dog all underneath here, but you're not. Also, this is really attractive to silky type hair, like a Cavalier, a Spaniel, Golden Retriever, any kind of dog like that. The hair gets caught in this mesh and it's really painful. And if you've got a dog like a Golden with a lot of feathers under the armpit and it gets caught in this and your dog can't move his arm, he can't walk. And now he's got 100 problems trying to tell you why he can't move his front leg and why he doesn't want to go for a walk. So avoid this type of harness. They look like they're going to be great, but they're not. This is really tight. And here's Tristan. He is wearing his TTOUCH harness. And the other thing you can see from him under my arm here is how much movement he has in his shoulder. There is no shoulder restriction. This whole leg, all the way up to the scapula, can move wherever it wants. And that's a critical thing with harnesses. Your dog's shoulder has to be able to move. A lot of the old kinds of harnesses cut right across the shoulder here and come straight back that way. This arm can't move. It's going to put your dog out of balance. You're going to create vertebral problems up in the thoracic and cervical vertebrae. You're going to end up with a dog with a lot of problems. I mean, people on the Friends Who Like Judy Morgan page were all concerned about a harness choking their dog, which is good. You should be, because a lot of them do. And you know, the reason you get a harness is because you don't want to choke your dog with a collar. But there's other things to keep in mind, because you don't want to throw your dog totally out of whack anywhere else in his body. So you want this shoulder to have plenty of room. Now this harness is not fitting this stuffed dog perfectly. It normally wouldn't be back this far around his middle. It would be up about, you know, not in his armpit, but like here, up another inch. And he probably needs a smaller size. So the other thing people look for in a harness is the Y in the front, so it's not hitting the soft tissues of the neck. Now, my TTOUCH harness could be adjusted on him so that I have it up higher, but if I tighten this bottom piece here, which is adjustable, I mean, these are super adjustable. The small all the way out is the same size as the medium all the way in, so they're great for growing dogs. You can adjust this bottom piece so that it's not putting any pressure on any of the soft tissues in the neck. So the other thing that's great about the 2 points of attachment, you can use a tiny signal to ask your dog what you want him to do. You don't have to yank on him. And it really, really helps stop pulling dogs. We certainly have trained many people in TTOUCH classes how to use this harness in, you know, less than an hour, and their dogs are not pulling after that. So what we talk about in TTOUCH is not controlling the dog, but influencing the dog. So if Jack starts to pull, and I'm on the side where the leash is coming to, whoa, we're wrapped around my books. I can just give them a little signal on the front or the back. It depends on who's telling you how to do this, but either way, you can give them a little signal on one end and then a bigger signal on the other end, and it brings them into balance. It's like when we're riding and we ask for a halt, we go, and, whoa, and it's the same with a dog, and stop, please. So you have a lot of ability to influence the dog. Now, if your dog is like mine and he no longer pulls, you can unhook this, and the leash can be, you can either double hook it here or you can hook it back on itself, and the baby corgi uses it this way a lot, back to its handle here. So now you've got a leash that's attached at the back, and the dog has quite a long space he can go, and you can also shorten up this long piece so that it's half this length. It literally adjusts itself so it can be shorter, and then of course you still have the flexibility of how you move the other snap to attach it here or on the handle, so that you have an infinite amount of adjustability. These harnesses come with the leash and the handle, and he's amazed at actually how soft the inside of the handle is for the human. And because it's made the way it is, it's double stitched onto the soft piece. So again, it distributes any pressure around your whole hand. And in TTOUCH, we try to give our dogs and our horses the smallest signal possible in order to ask them what we would like them to do. We don't want to be yanking and pulling, because that's exhausting for you and the animal, and it's not clear. A lot of the harnesses don't fit dogs well, and they're big and they're loose, and you start to just give them a signal and the whole thing shifts sideways. That's not very helpful. That's another reason this harness is adjustable in every single one of the pieces, except the piece that comes across the top of the back here. And like I said, the dog has lots of freedom of movement in his shoulder and his back, and I don't ever see an injured dog that's been walked in a TTOUCH harness. And as a physical therapist for pets, I can tell you I have seen every kind of problem in a dog created by harnesses. Problems in the low back, laryngeal paralysis from pulling on the neck, all kinds of problems with the vertebrae in the neck and the shoulders from harnesses and head collars, pulling them sideways. So, you know, and you can adjust these harnesses so much that it makes them really good. Like this one right now, Tristan hasn't worn this one lately, and I can see that it's a little close to his armpit here. So because I can adjust both sides, I can take it up a little so the snap is no longer in his armpit. You can't do that with a lot of these other harnesses, and people, I think it's the Pug Life one that people have had a lot of trouble because it does come under the dog's armpit. Think about the long-term effects of that snap being right in your armpit. It's going to make you walk like this with your toes pointing in to get up some freedom around that snap so it's not digging in. This, you know, my dog's hairy, but if I had a dachshund or somebody with like flat hair, that would be really uncomfortable. So they start to walk pigeon-toed, and that's going to interfere with how they carry their body. Their back is either going to go down or up depending on how they're trying to protect it. And you're going to end up with these physical problems, and not many people realize that it's coming from the harness, from the snap right here being right in the dog's armpit. So, and you can put fuzz on it, you can wrap it in vet wrap and do all that stuff. It does not help, because the problem is not just that it's hard plastic, but it's the bulkiness of it that interferes with the shoulder's movement. So you want your dog's shoulders to move. That's why this H harness gives the whole scapula full range of motion. So if you have more questions about Tellington TTOUCH harnesses, what's my website? SallyMorganPT.com. That's physical therapist, PT. And you can get these harnesses there. If you've got a dog like a Sheltie with a big coat, you really want to make sure the harness fits correctly, because you don't want to pull on the hair, and then that can be really irritating. We have seen this with horses so much, with something catching on the mane or the hair under the saddle, and it makes them crazy. Just like if somebody were pulling my hair right now, I wouldn't be able to concentrate or do anything. But a lot of these harnesses that are super popular right now, some recommended by vets and other trainers, they are really squishing dog shoulders. For years, the TTOUCH people, before we had our own harness, we were using the Freedom harness, which was a great harness. But they started to make it so that it comes really low on the shoulder, right across down here. And you can see what that's going to do. Jack's not going to be able to take a step with this leg because his harness is here. So, that's what prompted us to figure out a better way to make a harness.